Behind me is the all-new Canadian Dodge Durango. It's got it all, including a maple syrup-resistant glove box and 12.4 Capulls.
Just cracking on the side, boom.
Capils. Kipples. Kilometers per liter. Kilometers per litre. I don't know what you want. I don't read Canadian.
This is the Sports Psychology Hour with Dr. Andrew Jacobs on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And what I've done is help athletes be the best they can be. We work on giving you that winning edge, that mental edge that will help you realize your potential.
Dr. Jacobs has been in practice for over 30 years as a sports psychologist.
I'm a basketball referee. This mother out of nowhere says, "Troop him!"
Right now is your chance to call Dr. Jacobs for free help with any sports-related problem.
The coach was not afraid, the school was not afraid to back up the rules. And this show is about you. It's about having fun, working hard, building self-confidence, having the right attitude, being a good teammate, being a good parent, and being a good coach.
Now, here's the sports psychologist, Dr. Andrew Jacobs.
Good morning, Kansas City. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here in Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810 WHB TV. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a nice Sunday morning here in Kansas City as we get into our show here on Sports Psychology for the next hour here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm here Sunday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m., and this show is about the mental side of sports, and we talk about your mindset, your focus, your attitude. We talk about sportsmanship. We talk about the psychological issues that affect us on and off the playing field. I talk about parents. We talk about coaches. We talk about referees and officials. And most importantly, we talk about the athletes. We talk about how you can be the best you can be. We talk about topics that affect us as competitors, as fans. And this show is fueled by your calls, so look forward to taking your calls as we talk today. And I'll tell you, we're going to have an interesting show today because the past week has, needless to say, been an interesting one when it comes to sports. And one of the things that's really been interesting for me in this past week has been that the whole topic of streaks. If you look at sports today, there have been all these streaks going on. The San Antonio Spurs have won 17 games in a row. The Florida Gators, who advanced to the Final Four yesterday, have won 30 in a row. Wichita State, who unfortunately, if you're a Shocker fan, lost last week, had won 35 in a row. And the Philadelphia 76ers yesterday broke their losing streak after losing 26 in a row. They would have set the all-time record for consecutive losses in sports at 27 in a row. However, they won last night against the Detroit Pistons. So what's really interesting is here we have all these different streaks, positive and negative, going on. Now, how much of a streak is psychological? That's what I want to get into today with you. I want to find out your thoughts. I want to find out your opinions. Because to me, when you get in a role, positively or negatively, it says a lot to you about what's going on with the players, with the mindset, with your perspective. If you take the 76ers, they were about to break the all-time record for consecutive losses by a professional sports team in North America, and they didn't do it. Now, as I was listening last night to ESPN Radio, they were talking about how the Detroit Pistons, Stephen A. Smith, was commenting on the Pistons did not come to play last night. They took it for granted they were going to beat Philadelphia because Philadelphia is terrible. Well, Philadelphia is coming to play every night because they didn't want to have that record, and they broke it. It's very interesting. 26 losses has happened by the 76ers, by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2010-2011. Then Cleveland has also lost 24. Charlotte's lost 23. Denver's lost 23, as has Vancouver. That's a lot of losses in a row. And when you start and think about it, several years ago, I can't remember what year it was, the Royals began the year, and they lost about 20 in a row. I can't remember exactly how many losses it was per se, but baseball starting today, and there will be streaks going on right off the bat here. I promise you, this week there will be some team that wins 5 or 6 in a row. People will be talking about, gosh, why have they lost 5 or 6 in a row, and a team that loses 5 or 6 in a row, what's wrong with them? Well, you have to put in perspective. Number one, during the course of a 82-game NBA season, there will be streaks. Winning 17 is pretty unique. Losing 26 is almost unheard of. So why do winning and losing streaks happen? That's going to be our topic this morning. And I want to open up our phone lines right away and get your thoughts. If you are a fan, why do you think streaks start happening? If you're an athlete, what's going on in your mind when your team has lost 7, 8, 9, 10 games in a row? When you've won a number of games in a row, why is that happening? What's going on? What are your thoughts about that? My good friend Jim Bly is here, who runs our TV section of the program. And Jim, you've played professional golf before. So let me ask you a question. As a professional golfer, you'll go on a roll where you'll have 4 or 5 holes in a row, or maybe you birdie those holes. I'm assuming that's happened with you before.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you get on those rolls, and the hardest thing in any sport is putting everything together all at once. Mental, physical, nutrition, everything.
Well, what happens when you birdied 5 or 6 holes in a row? What's going through your mind?
Through mine is anytime, as we talked about whenever I came and saw you, anytime something good happens to me, I put more pressure on myself, thinking, man, I got to keep this up now. That's what went through mine.
And then eventually that pressure got too strong, and then the birdie run ended.
Right.
Okay, so if we take the Philadelphia 76ers going on this roll of 26 losses in a row, my sense is, and I was listening to Brett Brown, their coach, after some of the games, they've had him interviewed on TV quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, and he's talking about, I'm proud of them, they're working hard, they're trying, but we're just not getting it all together. So obviously there's something going on negatively. I mean, they can't be that bad. No team can, I mean, obviously they are because they lost that many games in a row if you look at it statistically, but no NBA team can really be that bad that they're going to lose 26 in a row unless something isn't right mentally with them. And I think what started to go on is when you go on one of these negative losing streaks, the mindset comes out, oh, here we go again. Here we go. It's the same old thing. I know with the Royals over the years, with the team until last year having a winning record, when the team would start off slowly, people would start to give up hope. Well, here they go again, losing again. And the mindset becomes a big part of this. Well, we're losing, we've lost, we're going to keep losing, and that negativity pervades. Do you know how many times you have to say how many negatives it takes to overcome, or excuse me, how many positive statements it takes to overcome one negative?
I don't remember.
12. So when you say I can't do it, you have to say I can do it, 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 I can do it.
To re-trigger your brain.
To get yourself in that positive mindset.
Yeah.
So if your team keeps losing and keeps losing and keeps losing, it compounds itself. And then the mental preparation that starts up for the game starts to become a defensive preparation because you start going into a game thinking, well, we can't lose, I don't want to lose. Gosh, what do we need to do to not lose? So what are you thinking about?
This has got to be the Guinness Book of World Records for longest professional sports loss streaks.
Well, it is. In the United States, in North America, it's tied for the record for the longest losing streak by a professional team.
And in today's day and age, I don't know how that can be possible with the athletes, the kind of athletes that are coming out of high school and college today. I mean, the amount of mental, physical preparation that these kids are given coming into this point.
Well, it just goes to show you how important the mindset is. So I want to open up our phone lines. Let's get some calls in here. If you've been on a team before that has been on a significant losing or winning streak, I'd like to hear from you. Our phone number is 913-381-810. 913-381-810. I'd like you to give me a call. I'd like to get your thoughts on why that's happened. 913-381-810. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. We're on Sports Radio 810 WHB here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. Today's topic is winning streaks and losing streaks. Have you been on a team that won a number of games in a row? What started happening to you as an athlete, as a competitor, or if you're a coach? If you have coached a team that's won a bunch of games in a row, what's the mindset of the team like? You know, I've been with teams. I've been with professional teams, collegiate teams, high school teams. Olympic teams where things have been going well. And what starts to happen is you start believing in yourself. That confidence level raises. I always talk about the 4 key words: preparation, focus, attitude, and confidence. Are you prepared properly? If you're winning and you're comfortable with what you're doing, you get into that mindset: I'm feeling good, everything's going well, let's just keep it up. And it becomes contagious. Everybody starts to feel good about themselves. In much the same way, when you start losing, it's the same thing. That negativity pervades. It becomes like the plague. It consumes everybody. It becomes hard to be positive because you're thinking so much about not being negative. And when you're thinking about not being negative, well, then you are negative. All right, let's get some calls in here. If you're a coach, how do you deal with your team? How do you handle your team when you go on a losing streak? What do you do to try to get that to break? How do you try to change the mindset of your players? If you are an athlete and you're in the midst of a slump, when things aren't going well, what do you do to change that? 913-381-1010 is our number. Much the same way, if you're on a winning streak, if things are going well, what's going on? I think what starts to happen is you don't think as much about it. You don't get caught up in the negativity. You're just feeling good about where you're at. All right, 913-381-1010 is our number. We have our first call of the morning. Let's see what John has to say. John, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I just got a comment. I played on a high school football team that won the state championship. The next year, I got recruited, went to K-State when K-State was losing terribly. And then my sophomore year when Coach Snyder came in and changing the culture was just a totally different deal. Kind of all the highs and lows and back to highs by the end of my career there.
What was the difference when you were on a team that was winning in high school as well as when Bill Snyder took over compared to prior to Bill Snyder?
You know, like in high school, looking back, we won the state championship. Like I said, we didn't have a ton of talented guys, but I went to a school that just expected to win, and like we played in a league that was mainly hit. Most of the teams we played against had way superior talent than we did. We didn't know that at the time because our coaches never let us know that, but we just believed we were going to win. It was a traditional school that won a lot, and I mean, literally, we walked on the field expecting to win as opposed to thinking we'd win.
And so so what you're saying then, John, is the mindset played a key role in how you guys did, because from a talent perspective, you weren't as good, but from a mental preparation standpoint, a mental attitude standpoint, a focus standpoint, a confidence standpoint, you were superior to the other opponents.
Exactly.
How much of a role, let me ask you, how much of a role do you think this has played with the Philadelphia 76ers losing 26 games in a row until they finally won last night?
You know, I'm not a big NBA guy, so I didn't even know about that streak until it was over, to be honest with you. But, you know, again, going back to the K-State days, once it gets in your head that you expect to lose, you never go into a game thinking you're going to lose or, you know, hey, there's no chance. I mean, every game you go into, I'm speaking football, you know, we only play one a week, so we have a whole week to prepare. Basketball's different because you have night to night, that kind of thing. But football, nobody ever goes in a game thinking, hey, we can't win this game. Back when I played, Nebraska and Oklahoma were the big giants, and I never went on the field against Oklahoma and Nebraska thinking we can't win. But as soon as things started happening bad, then you're like, okay, here it goes again. You know, and even no matter how hard you prepare, once you get in that mindset of we can win as opposed to we are going to win, when things go bad, it's easy to fall in those patterns. So
what you're sharing with us is, from a football player's perspective, the mental aspect of this plays a key role, and maybe even a bigger role than your technical preparation and fundamentals. It comes down to where your mind is at, because if you really believe you can do something, you give yourself a chance to do it, and if you don't believe you can't, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, when Coach Snyder came in, he changed everything. But the first thing he changed was the culture of the thought process. And yes, we worked our tail off way harder than we did before, but it wasn't like we worked harder, like running more, which we did, but it was more the intention of which you prepared. Totally different.
Interesting comments, John. Listen, sir, thank you for your call this morning. I appreciate you. Have a great day. This is sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810WHB.com. Today's topic is the issue of winning and losing streaks. So I'd like to hear from you. If you are an athlete or a coach, and you've been on a team that's won a bunch of games in a row, why did you get on that roll? What was going on that allowed that to happen? Conversely, if you've been on a losing streak and your team keeps losing, like we said last night, the Philadelphia 76ers broke their losing streak of 26 games in a row. When you play 82 games in the NBA, that's a third of your games. They've lost basically a third of their games in a row. How does that happen? I think you get into the negative mindset to the point that your confidence is gone. You don't believe you can win. As soon as you fall behind, it becomes, here we go again, here's the negativity, here's why. And I think it gets contagious, and everybody starts to believe it, and you get to a point where you really lose that confidence that you're capable of being successful. All right, our phone number is 913-381-810. 913-381-810. College basketball, where Final Four weekend is coming up here next week, where the last two games today to determine those teams. The Florida Gators won their 30th game in a row last night to make the Final Four. 30 games in a row. Okay, Wichita State lost last week in the NCAA tournament. They'd won 35 in a row. At some point, when you keep winning games, the talk comes up about when are we going to lose? When are you going to lose? What are you going to do when you start to lose? People start talking about that. If you're a member of that team, you try not to listen to that. You try not to get into that. However, on a collegiate professional basis, the media are going to be asking those questions. It's inevitable that question is going to come up. What's going to happen if you lose? And I think the mindset of a champion, is that they don't believe that losing is going to happen. When it does, they'll deal with it. They believe they're going to win. They give themselves the chance. And this NCAA tournament has been so full of so many exciting games being determined at the last moment. Last night, Wisconsin ends up beating Arizona in overtime by a point. I mean, we've had so many games come down to the wire. And I think the confidence level of these players has been demonstrated to be so high because they have that belief that they can do it. And I think that's when a winning streak happens, is the confidence level of the players, the coaches, everybody involved with the program is so high, they don't believe that losing is going to happen. And that's also why you see such high emotion with these players when they do lose. Let's face it, their season's over, for many of them their career's over, and then the reality hits. But it's interesting how they don't believe that until it's over. And so the mindset plays such a key role here. So let's get some calls in here. If you are a coach, and you have coached a team that has lost a bunch of games in a row, you've been on a losing streak, your team has not been winning, you've been losing, the mentality in the locker room is bad, the mentality on the playing field is bad, what do you do to try to change that? How do you change that? Our phone number is 913-381-810. 913-381-810. If you are an athlete and you are on a team that is losing consistently, your team is not successful, you keep getting beaten, you keep losing games, and it gets drilled in your head that you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. What starts to happen to you mentally, psychologically, when you come to the games, when you're in the games? All right, let's get some calls in here. 913-381-810 is our number. If you're a coach, if you're an athlete, you're on a team, how do you change the culture? How do you change the mindset? How do you change the negativity? I think that's a key part of this. I know back in 1985, 84, 85, I got hired by the Kansas City Comets. And we were 2-9 when Rick Ben became the head coach, and I got hired. And the team was in a negative slump. And I know Rick changed the culture. We worked with the players and the team on changing the attitude, the perspective, starting over. And eventually the team bought into Rick's coaching philosophy. We went on, I think it was about a 9 or 10 game winning streak at some point. And the team started to believe that they could do it, And that positive mindset played such a key role in the team's success. So that's where I think this is at. I think when a team is in a streak, winning or losing, so much of it starts to become the belief, the confidence level, the attitude level within the athletes, within the team, within the culture of that team, that they're going to win or lose. All right, 913-381-810 is your number. We're going to go to a commercial break. Let's get some calls in here. I want to see what you think. If you're a coach and you have coached a team that has been on a streak, winning or losing, why did it happen? How did you break it? How did it change? If you have been an athlete on a team that's been on a positive roll. You've been winning games. You've been successful consistently. You're a golfer. You're a tennis player. You're just winning and winning and winning. You're birding hole after hole. Why does that happen? 913-3810-810 is our number. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. Give me a call and let's talk. We're on Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 10 WHB.
Behind me is the all-new Canadian Dodge Durango. It's got it all, including a maple syrup-resistant glove box and 12.4 Capulls.
Yeah, just cracking on the side. Boom.
Capills. Kipples.
Look at this.
Kilometers per liter. Kilometers per litre. I don't know what you want. I don't read Canadian.
Pressure. That's one of the reasons teams have winning streaks or losing streaks. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. We're on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810WHB.com and 810 WHB TV. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. talking about the mental side of sports. And today's topic is the issue of winning and losing streaks. And I'd like to hear from you if you are a coach or an athlete and you have been on a team before that was on a long winning or losing streak. I don't care what the sport is. I don't care what level it was. Why did it happen? Last night in the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers broke their 26-game losing streak. Had they lost to the Detroit Pistons last night, they would have established the longest losing streak in U.S. sports history, professional sports history at 27 games. Fortunately for them, they didn't do it. And you have to ask the question, when you get into this negative role, why does it happen? Conversely, the San Antonio Spurs won their 17th game in a row. They've been going in the opposite direction. You know, you look at the difference between these two teams, obviously from a talent perspective and an experience perspective. Let's face it, the Spurs have been one of the best teams in the NBA for years. They have, in Greg Popovich, a great coach. They've got great players with Tim Duncan and Tony Parker. They know how to win. You know, you hear that all the time. They know how to win. What does that mean? What does it mean when someone says you know how to win? If you're a coach or an athlete, I'd like to get you to answer that question. 913-3810-810 is our number. 913-3810-810. What does it mean when someone says you know how to win? Because you also know how to lose. If you play sports, you're going to win, you're going to lose. Why does a team go on a streak, positively or negatively? I think the mindset becomes a big piece of it. I think your attitude becomes a big piece of it. I think your confidence level. You start to get to a point where you believe that you're going to win every night. You get yourself to the point where you expect it to happen. Now, I think when a team is on a winning streak and oftentimes it gets broken because their confidence level oftentimes gets too high. With a lot of teams, what starts to happen is they'll win 7, 8, 9 games in a row, and they expect to win to the point that they don't do the work they have to do that they've normally done to win. And they'll come into a game expecting we're going to win because we've won 7 or 8 in a row. It doesn't work that way. You have to still make it happen. And that's where the mindset becomes a big part of this. All right, I'd like to hear from you once again. We've only had one caller so far this morning, so let's get some calls in here. If you are a coach and you have played or you have coached a team that's been on an extensive streak, winning or losing, why did it happen? What did you do to change the losing streak and get out of that losing mentality? If you are a coach who's coached a team that's continuing to win, how do you keep doing that? Let's take the University of Kansas men's basketball team winning 10 Big 12 conference championships in a row. This year, with basically a whole new team, they still won their 10th conference championship in a row. Now, they didn't do too well in the NCAA tournament, as we know, losing to Stanford in the second round, but they've won 10 in a row. I'm sure next year KU will be favored to win their 11th in a row, part of which is going to depend on who comes back. who goes to the NBA on that team, but they won 9 in a row before this year. People are saying, well, they're going to win their 10th. People just expect when you're winning to keep winning if there aren't a lot of changes. And I think as a coach, that's where the mindset comes in. So once again, 913-3810810 is our number. I'd like to hear from you. If you have played on a team and your team keeps losing, what is the mindset you take into the locker room every day? What is the mindset you take onto the golf course every day? My TV producer, Jim Bly, played professional golf. He's been through the ups and downs. And let's face it, the weather's getting nice. People are going to start hitting the golf course. I know today's supposed to be in the 70s, so the golf courses are going to be quite busy here in town. When you're on that positive roll, Jim, okay, like I said earlier, when you make 5 or 6 birdies in a row, I've never done that before. I'd love to do that. But when you start getting into that roll, what are you thinking about when you get to the next tee box?
Well, just keeping the roll going, trying to keep calm, it's the same things that you're kind of the same things you're thinking about when you're on a negative roll. It's just flip-flopped. You just stay in the groove. Don't get outside yourself. You've got to keep some cockiness about you.
Cockiness or confidence?
Confidence, cocky. I think in individual sports there's a little bit of cockiness that plays a role. I mean, Tiger definitely had a little bit of cockiness, confidence there going.
Well, but I think when you have confidence, there's the belief that you can do it. Confidence means believing in yourself.
Right.
And when your confidence level is high, you've got the ability to believe you can do whatever you want to do. When you start to get a little cocky and that cockiness level starts to come on, I think you start to think, well, because I'm who I am, it's going to happen. And I think that's when you get yourself in trouble, because when that starts to get too high, you just expect it to happen and you lose that perspective on how you've gotten there.
Too high. Like I said, just a little bit. You got to have that edge, knowing that you're that good and you can do it and keep doing it.
I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. We're live here at Sports Radio 10 WHB, and I'd like to hear from you. We're talking about winning and losing streaks. And I'm sure you've played on a team. I'm sure you've been on a team that's lost a bunch of games in a row. If you have been an athlete on a team who's lost a bunch of games in a row, how did you deal with that? If you're a mom or dad and your son or daughter's been on a team that keeps losing, what do you say to them to try to get them to change their attitude? What do you say to them as a parent when they've been on a team that's lost 7 or 8 games in a row, and they're 12 years old, and the game ends, and they're upset, and they get in the car, and they're all in a down mood, and they come home, and let's face it, they're not happy. What do you say to them as a parent to try to give them a chance? Oh, you say, don't worry, you'll win the next one? No, you don't say that. Because are they going to believe you? They're going to blow you off right there. They're not going to pay attention to you. What do you say to them as a parent when your son or daughter is on a team that keeps losing? How do you, as a parent, confront them, deal with them, try to help them get through that? 913-3810810 is our number. Like I said, let's get some calls in here. I want to hear from you. If you're a coach, if you're an athlete, if you're a parent. What about officials? Let's hear from you as well. How do you, if you know you're going into a game, this is a good question. If you're officiating a game with a team that's on a big losing streak or a big winning streak, do you think sometimes people think there's favoritism by the officials, positively or negatively, that goes on there? Do you think that starts to happen? And how do you handle that as an official? Because let's face it, you play a key role in what goes on. These NCAA basketball games that have come down to the last second. Last night, the Wisconsin-Arizona game in overtime with, I think it was like 2.3 seconds left. They had a question as to who knocked the ball out of bounds. That they spent, close to 5 minutes, seemed like, trying to figure out, looking at the replay, who touched the ball last. So they play a key role in this too. And how much of a mindset as an official do you have where you start thinking about these things? Once again, our phone number here is 913-3810810. I'd like to hear from you if you're a coach. I'd like to hear from you if you're an athlete, if you're an official, if you're a parent. When you are part of a team or involved with a team that's been on a big winning streak or a losing streak, how do you change that? How do you change the negativity, or how do you keep the positivity going? Let's see what Doug has to say. Doug, good morning, sir. How are you?
And good morning. It's funny that expectations to change a mindset or to have that type of mindset starts far out from, it kind of seems like you guys are talking about, as you're approaching the ball, and, the gentleman who was talking about golf, it happens, I think, months, if not years prior to that. And to get in that kind of mindset of that when you walk onto the court or the field, that you're going to win. And it is something that I've been with an organization that we were losers. We maybe won one game a year, and then we turned it around.
What sport, Doug?
It was football.
Okay.
But it was also happening in baseball, where I was on a team where we walked on the field, we knew we were going to win, and it was totally different mindset in high school, where we walked on the field, we knew we were going to win. Then I go to college, and I'm at a university where we did not win. And we ended up turning the program around and going to a bowl game, K-State, that we had to go through. We actually went through Zig Ziglar, a motivational guy. They came in and talked to us, and it is a process. You can't just do it overnight. It is a long-term thing where you mentally prepare yourself and have that expectation that you're going to go out and compete, and not do just on the football field, but do it in the classroom, and thinking about it away from the game to where the visualization.
Well, you are hitting on all the things I talk about on this show all the time. Now, let me ask you this question: as an athlete, what percentage of this do you think is psychological? How much of the psychological component plays a role with this? And I think I know what you're going to say, but I want to hear from you.
Well, first is you got to have somewhat talent. I mean, it's got to be at least competitive. Excuse me, to the other teams. You got to be at least in their neighborhood. But the mental part of it is probably to turn something around is probably 75 to 80%. Really is. It's a very high percentage of being able to change it. And again, you were talking about confidence and cocky. You can't be cocky with people that are outside, because they're going to knock you down.
You very, very well stated, Doug. Very well stated. It's interesting you're saying this. My high school football team, I did not play high school football. I was way too short. But I went to Shawnee Mission North, graduated in 1972. The 3 years I was there, we won state all 3 years, and I think we lost a total of 2 games. And I know a lot of my friends played on the football team. I'm still good friends with a lot of these guys to this day. And there was that belief when the games would come on that they were going to win. There was sometimes a little bit of an arrogance by some of these guys, but for the most part there was that belief, hey, we've got to go out and win, and they knew they could lose any day. But there was the belief that they could do it, and that's where that confidence level, I think, plays a key role. And I think in the end, I always like to say you can have 2 athletes of physical and equal skills, but the one with the stronger mind is going to be the one who's going to come out on top.
And here again, you don't want to get into too much of this, but what I somewhat found is that when you are a losing organization, what ends up happening is you get distractions that take you away from that goal of winning, such as partying. I mean, you're not disciplined, and there are athletes out there that as soon as the game's over, they're hitting the bars and doing whatever, and then there are other organizations, or, it's okay to go out and have some beers, but there are other ones that go out and just do it all the time, and that's not taking you to the level that is going to get you to win.
Well, and that's where you have to establish your goals, you have to establish your priorities, and I talk with athletes about, there's so many things I work with athletes on, but 2 of the key things are balance and consistency. How are you balancing what you're doing, and how can you be consistent? When you're doing well, there's a reason why you do well. When you're doing poorly, there's a reason why you do poorly, and you've got to get that in check. Doug, thank you so much for your call, sir. Great comments. I appreciate it. Let's see what Joseph has to say. Joseph, good morning. I'm Dr. Jacobs. How are you?
Yeah, how's it going?
Great. Get your thoughts, sir.
As far as the difference between cockiness and confidence, what I've seen in my coaching history is the athletes who were confident versus cocky were the ones who believed they could win because of what they could do, and the cocky ones were they believed they could win because of who they were.
Very well stated. Very well stated. And when you start to think you can win because of who you are, what do you start to lose?
See, that's where, like the previous caller, I believe, stated, that's where mental toughness comes into play. Those guys, they face some adversity and they tend to crumble. Those ones who are truly confident believe they can win because of what they can do. They tend to be more mentally tough, able to overcome that adversity.
I know when I've worked with professional athletes, specifically, I don't work with the Royals now, but I have worked with them recently.
Yeah, same here.
I've worked with them twice. And one of the things that I know working with Major League Baseball players is that the athletes who've been successful in the minor leagues that get to the major leagues expect to be successful up here. And some of them don't become successful. They fail. They are not as successful here as they've been down in the minors. And they don't know how to deal with it because they've never dealt with that before. So
That's correct.
I think that the athletes who become successful at the professional level have learned how to lose. I think learning how to fail, learning how to lose is part of the formula for being successful. So I think these teams that go on winning streaks typically have athletes who have been in negative situations before and have learned from it and grown from it. The ones that keep going on losing streaks, I believe, are the ones who haven't learned from that. And I think you'll see that with the players on the Royals this year. The ones who succeed, I think for the most part, will have learned from the negative situations, and the ones that don't are the ones that haven't. Now, you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely. You're talking about a sport that really is based on failure. You know, you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're still an all-star. Fail 6 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Fame.
Well, and you know, I know having worked with the Royals, spent time with them in 1990 when George Brett won his 3rd batting title. I can tell you right now, George Brett, and I love George Brett. I think I know him personally from being with the team. He understood what it was about. He understood when he hit 390 in 1980. He hit 400 in mid-August, and it didn't happen. And I know what happened there, and he's talked about it, was that he was on this roll, but then everyone kept asking. They had every game he had to talk to the media to the point that it got him out of his routine. He just started thinking so much about 400, 400, 400. I think the pressure got too strong for him. And I think he's talked about that publicly many times. And I think in 1990, when he won his 3rd batting title, which came down to the last game of the year, he just kept focusing on being positive. And I think there's a big, big lesson we can learn from that, from the one true Kansas City Royal who's in the Hall of Fame. Do you agree with that, Joseph?
I would. And I also say that today's players have a tougher environment for that due to social media. They're just, I believe there's a lot more fan availability than in the prior generation.
Well, and that all depends on, I think, your priorities and the things you decide to set up for yourself in terms of what's important, what isn't. If you get too caught up with that stuff, get caught up with the distractions. Our previous caller talked about partying and going out, and you've got to keep things in perspective. And that's where the balance is so important with who you are. Joseph, thanks for your call, sir. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
All right, I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. We're on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810 WHB TV. And I'd like to hear from you. Today's topic is the issue of winning streaks and losing streaks. If you have been on a team that has won a bunch of games in a row, like the San Antonio Spurs have won 17 in a row, like the Florida Gators have won 30 in a row going to the Final Four, what's the mindset amongst the players, amongst the coaches, amongst all of you? What's the mindset you take into the locker room every day? What happens in a game when you get ahead or behind? At the same time, if you're on a team that's lost a bunch of games, and like the Philadelphia 76ers, who just last night broke their 26-game losing streak, if they lost last night, they would have the major sports record in the United States for the most consecutive losses ever. What's the mindset when you're losing all the time? I'd like to hear from you if you're a coach, if you're an athlete, if you're a parent, if you're an official. How do you deal with these situations? Our phone number is 913-3810-810. 913-3810-810. Give me a call and let's talk. We're on the Leader in Sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Behind me is the all-new Canadian Dodge Durango. It's got it all, including a maple syrup-resistant glove box and 12.4 capulls.
Yeah, just cracking on the side. Boom.
Capills. Kipples.
Take it like this.
Kilometers per liter. kilometers per litre. I don't know what you want. I don't read Canadian.
Sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, and welcome to our show here on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810 WHB TV. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and hope you're enjoying the show today. Our topic today is the issue of winning streaks and losing streaks. How do you deal with both of them? How do you respond if you're on a winning streak or a losing streak, right? If we've got big-time streaks in sports going on right now, the San Antonio Spurs have won 17 in a row. The Florida Gators just made the Final Four. They've won 30 in a row. Wichita State lost in the NCAA tournament last week. They won 35 in a row. And last night, the Philadelphia 76ers broke their 26-game losing streak. If they'd lost last night to Detroit, they would have established the all-time losing streak record for a professional sports franchise in the United States. So I'd like to hear from you. If you are an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're a parent, if you're an official, losing and winning streaks, how do you deal with them positively or negatively? Our phone number is 913-3810810. And before we go back to the phones, I want to remind you, you can now follow me on Twitter at DRJ Sport Psych. DRJ SPORT PSYCH. All right, let's see what Andy has to say. Andy, great name. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I kind of have somewhat of an interesting take on this. I have a 6-year-old, and he's almost 7, and this is the most competitive person I've ever come in contact with. And I've played baseball my whole life. I've played a little in college and that kind of thing, and I've never met anyone more competitive than my 6-year-old son. All last year, his little 6-year-old soccer team won every single game. He scored no less than about 4 points in every single game. He's a very athletic kid, good size, very fast. And then this year, he's played his first game so far, and they won again. Well, last night, we were playing a game of Uno, a little card game, and he lost. And it's almost felt like he was confronted with some things that he's not usually used to dealing with, and we had to have a little talk because he took it really hard, and that he'd lost this card game.
How did he react? I'm interested to hear his reaction.
You know, in a typical 6-year-old fashion, throwing himself on the floor and crying and getting very upset and that kind of thing, and not wanting to, continue playing with us, me and his mom, and that kind of thing.
Okay, well let me ask a question here, Andy. Let me interject here. Okay, first of all, why is a 6-year-old soccer player caught up with winning games? Because I think at 6 years of age, winning and losing should not even be mentioned. I think at 6 years of age, he should be on a team where they're learning about fundamentals and skills and having fun. Winning and losing for 6-year-olds should not be the issue.
And I totally agree, and that's the direction that we always take. The whole thing is about having fun, but in his mind, without any direction from me or his mom or his coach or anybody else, he knows exactly how many points he scored. He knows exactly who else on his team scored points, and he knows that they won every single game last year. And he knows that they won this game this year.
Well, but see, but here's my point. I hear what you're saying, but someone is talking to him about this. Someone's registering this in his mind, and that's where you as a parent have a job ahead of you here with your son. I mean, it's great that he's competitive because you know what? That's going to help him in life. But at 6 years of age, winning and losing should not even be an issue. At 6 years of age, he should be focusing in on having fun, enjoying the game, and doing what it needs to do to have fun out there and learn and grow. And so that's where you need to de-emphasize the losses and the wins, how many goals he scores, and focus more on having him develop the fun atmosphere here, the positive atmosphere here, and get him to learn about that. And teach him that that it's not as much winning and losing, it's success and failure. He's going to fail, and it's okay. You need to tell him that it's okay if you don't come in first, because you're going to learn from it. It's going to make you better. What did you learn about yourself? Rather than getting upset and throwing a temper tantrum at 6, he needs to learn that that's part of life, and he has to learn how to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would be what I would encourage you to focus with him on and work with him on and see what happens. And, give me a call back a couple weeks and let me know how that goes, because this is an important lesson for your son, because if he doesn't learn this now, you might need to be bringing him in to see me in my office in a couple of years.
Right. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Good luck with you on that.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see what Brian has to say. Brian, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you, sir?
Great. Get your thoughts.
Good. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I graduated from high school in 2002. I left and I went to Lincoln University in Jefferson City, a historical black college that I went to school at, played defensive tackle there. And in my college career, I started playing in the 2003 season, played all the way until 2007. I won a combined 5 games in my college career. That was a little tough to swallow. As a person who I like to win, I'm very competitive. I like to win. And I think that's been the mind state and what's helped me to, in life, because I want to be a winner. I don't want to be a loser. But it's when you're in the locker room with guys who have lost 5, 6, 8 football games in a row, what happens in the locker room is it's like, all right, well, I'm here. What's going to happen this time? How many points are we going to lose by this week? Or you have the guys that are they're like, well, I'm looking to transfer. I'm about to show out today, not caring about what the other guy got going on or what he needs to do or being a team player. He's worried about padding his stats so some scout will find him and basically save him. I've also been on the other side of the spectrum.
Excuse me a second, Brian. Let me interject something here.
Sure.
One of the things I'm hearing you say here is there's a lack of leadership. Okay?
I agree.
Because when you've got that mentality existing, I mean, where are the coaches at? This stuff obviously is being noticed by people. So, to me, a negative environment in the locker room, a negative environment amongst the players and the team is fostered by and controlled by the leadership that's there, whether that's the senior leadership of the players or whether that's the coaching staff. And when you have this type of situation scenario on your team, to me, there's a lack of really effective leadership going on and guidance. And so I think that had a lot to do with what was going on there.
Right. And it did. Those coaches are gone now. They're long gone now. During my senior year, he was fired. I'm not going to put any names out there or anything, but, it changed. The whole thing changed after a few seasons. Now they're a pretty decent football team, and I'm very proud of them. And I've been on the other side of it where you're on a winning streak, and it feels like, when you're older guy, not a kid, because when you're a kid, I don't think that really should matter to you. Winning and losing should not be a matter. It's about having fun, playing the game, and being and trying to figure this out, like, is this what I really like? But
and that's where I'd like to get your thoughts. Let me ask this question. Our previous caller, Andy, talked about his 6-year-old son, who he's on a soccer team at 6, and they're winning all their games. See, I think there's a big problem with that, and I
absolutely
mentioned that to him. What are your thoughts?
I mean, someone who's played in really competitive football even my whole life, even at my smaller ages, playing, flag football at 6, 7 years old, playing pad at 10, I played on competitive teams, but it was my chance to learn. I didn't care if we won or lost.
Well, and that's where I'm concerned about this young man, because I think the coaches, he knows they're winning because the coaches are talking about it.
My coaches talked to me about it too. But he's like, we need to win this game.
But at 6,
I didn't care.
At age 6, I don't think. At age 6, winning and losing shouldn't even be mentioned to these kids.
No.
It should all be about having fun and getting better and figuring out what you're doing. And it's great that his son's being good at it. He's good at that. He's being successful. But they need to focus on the fun aspect and the learning aspect. Otherwise, I'm afraid Andy's son may end up having some issues later because he's going to have to learn how to deal with this because he's going to fail at things. I mean, we all do.
Absolutely.
And at
Absolutely.
age, yeah. So for you, Brian, you're saying you've been on the winning side and the losing side.
Yes.
How did you overcome the losing, and how did you keep the winning growing?
With the losing side, I eventually became that leader in the locker room, and players eventually rallied around me, and because I still believed. We weren't. I will admit we were not that good, but we had athletes, and I knew that we could win. If we just would tap into what we had, I knew that we could win. That's what we had a T-shirt that said "Tap In," And on the winning side, it was like walking on eggshells. Like I'm telling you, like okay, I would do this. I know this sounds so bad because I'm really not even superstitious, but I would do the same thing every Saturday before a game. I would show up I would eat the same breakfast. I would show up at the same time. I would go to the same store to get whatever I need every time, and I would do that consistently.
And then when you lost, did you change that routine?
When I lost, yes, I did. I changed everything.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I got to let you go. Listen, sir, thank you for your call this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. here on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810TV.com. If you want to get a hold of me, once again, you can follow me on Twitter. My Twitter address is DRJ Sports Psych, DRJ SPORTPSYCH. If you want to get a hold of me at my office, that number is 816-561-5556. I talk on these topics all the time. I work with people privately. I talk to teams. So give me a call, 816-561-5556. Check out my website, winnersunlimited.com. Follow me on my newsletter that I publish every month, winnersunlimited.com. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 810 WHB.